Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a book, a slim volume, really, that its author believed had solved, well, all the essential problems of philosophy.
Quite the claim, isn't it?
Right. And then after you've struggled through it, understood it, he tells you to essentially, throw it away, like a ladder you don't need anymore.
That's Wittgenstein for you. Enigmatic, revolutionary. We're talking about the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus.
Exactly. A work that didn't just nudge 20th century thought, it kind of blew it up, forcing philosophers to rethink, well, everything.
Yeah.
Language, logic, reality itself.
Mm-hmm.
So today, we're diving deep, not just into what he said, but how he built his arguments. It's almost like he's an architect drawing this meticulous logical blueprint.
A blueprint designed to show the very limits of what we can even meaningfully say.
Right. Redefining the boundaries.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is that his ambition wasn't really to add new theories to the philosophical pile.
No. What was it then?
It was more about clarification, about figuring out what philosophy is, and maybe just as importantly, what it isn't. He wanted to provide this rigorous method.
A method for understanding.
For understanding the logical structure of language and reality. Like an intellectual house cleaning, Getting rid of the confusing stuff.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to explore those core ideas.
Exactly. From what facts are, the building blocks of the world, right through to his famous picture theory of language.
And the really tricky stuff, too. Ethics, the mystical, the unspeakable.
Oh, definitely. We have to touch on that. And we'll look at how his ideas really challenged the big names of his day, people like Frege and Russell.
And hopefully give you some of those aha moments.
That's the plan. Moments that might just redefine how you think about communication, about reality itself. So yeah, get ready for a pretty profound journey into the logical architecture of, well, everything.
Okay, so right off the bat, this book is weird. I mean, structurally, this is where it gets really interesting, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You pick up the Tractatus, and it's unlike almost any other philosophy book you'll ever see.
It's not something you just read linearly, cover to cover.
Not at all. Wittgenstein himself said, quite famously, that without its unique numbering system, the book would just be an incomprehensible jumble.
And he wasn't kidding, was he?
No, he really wasn't. That structure isn't just like fancy formatting. It's completely integral to his whole philosophical project.
So what is it about this structure? Why was it so vital? Why did he think the way you read it was so tied to its meaning?
It's absolutely crucial. You've hit the nail on the head. The structure is part of the philosophy, not just, the wrapping paper. First off, it's a hierarchical and nested system.
Right, those decimal numbers. Then 1.1, 1.1.
Exactly. All the way down. They aren't just labels for reference. They're designed to show the precise logical importance, the dependency of each proposition.
So like an outline, but more intense.
Much more. Think of it like a logical tree. Proposition N.1 is a direct comment and elaboration on proposition N, and then NM1 elaborates further on NM, and so on.
Ah, okay. Branching down?
Precisely. He actually called it a nested system of brackets. Each new decimal point is like a branch delving deeper, commenting on the statement just before it. It's not just organizing points, it's a map.
A map of the logical connections.
Yes, showing how the arguments build and relate in a way that, frankly, normal prose just struggles to capture as clearly.
So it's not like he wrote proposition 1, then 1.1, then 1.1, and then moved to 2. It sounds more complex than that.
Oh, much more complex in its creation. That brings us to his unique compositional method. He definitely didn't write it in straight numerical order.
How did he do it then?
Well, it seems he started with the big ones, the cardinal propositions. Let's say 1 through 6, the main pillars.
Okay, the main points.
Then he'd elaborate on those with what you could call the first level comment lines, like 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, comments on proposition 4.
Right, filling in the first layer.
Exactly. And only then would he go deeper, illustrating those comments with further subcomments and so on. So he built it out level by level, almost horizontally across the structure first.
So reading it properly means following that structure, not just reading page after page.
Yes. You're retracing his thought process, moving across a logical level before you dive deeper vertically. It's like a painter building up layers on a canvas, adding detail to the broader strokes already there.
That makes sense. He felt normal writing was too linear.
Yeah, too restrictive. He felt his ideas lost their punch if they were just strung out in a line. This tree-like structure let him be incredibly concise, sharp, but still show the huge scope of his thinking.
You also mentioned a third dimension, though, beyond just down and across. What's that about?
Yes. This is where it gets even more subtle, more intricate. There's also this third perspectival dimension.
Perspectival.
Yeah. Sometimes, besides the usual decimal comments, he used lines with a zero, like n.0 meter, sometimes called centesimal lines, or even double zeros, n.00 meter.
Okay, what do those signify?
Think of them less as direct logical steps down and more like background notes, or different angles on the main idea, secondary developments.
So not less important, logically, just a different kind of comment.
He actually noted they were less important than their decimal counterparts, interestingly. It suggests that each main point, each node in the argument, doesn't just lead to one primary line of thought, but also these secondary background ones, different shades of meaning.
Like seeing the main idea reflected in different mirrors, as he apparently said.
Exactly that quote. The problems addressed here are nothing but images of the only great problem reflected in the mirrors, big and small, variously arranged philosophy. It really invites you to look at each core idea from multiple angles.
That is incredibly sophisticated, way beyond just an outline. So what's the real payoff for us reading it this way? Why does it matter philosophically?
The philosophical significance is huge. Reading it tree-wise, following these branches, is essential because it clears up things that seem ambiguous or like non sequiturs if you just read it straight through.
It helps avoid misinterpretations.
Definitely. It lets us dismiss a lot of mistaken readings that have popped up over the years. For example, his ontology, his theory of what exists, starting around 2.0.
Like what the world is made of.
Right. That section doesn't logically come before his picture theory, which starts at 2.1 and explains how language represents reality.
Even though 2.0 comes before 2.1 numerically.
Exactly. In the structure, they're on the same level. They're equally weighted explanations branching off from Proposition 2. So it's not, first, here's what exists, then second, here's how we talk about it.
It's more like they're explored in parallel.
Precisely. It changes how you see the relationship between his idea of the world and how we represent it. It's a simultaneous unpacking of connected ideas, not a linear argument.
So it sounds like a lot of early readers just missed this, which must have caused a ton of confusion.
Oh, absolutely. This structural insight is in stark contrast with many early interpretations. You had prominent figures like Max Black, who basically dismissed the numbers entirely.
Called it a distraction, or even joke.
Yeah, an affected distraction, a private joke. Can you imagine? Others, like Kenny or Schroeder, saw maybe a two-dimensional structure, but didn't quite grasp its full depth, sometimes thinking it was just copied from Russell's Principia Mathematica.
Instead of being part of the philosophy itself.
Right. Even Russell himself, in his introduction, clearly struggled with it, reading it more linearly and getting hung up on what Wittgenstein only shows versus what he says.
But Wittgenstein was adamant, wasn't he? He told his publisher it would be incomprehensible without the numbers.
Crystal clear. He intended this complex, multidimensional reading from the very start. The big takeaway here is that the form of the book is part of its message. It demonstrates the logical architecture he's describing.
So you can't really get what he's saying without paying attention to how he's saying it.
You absolutely have to. They're inseparable.
So after setting up this incredibly precise, almost architectural way to read his work, Wittgenstein dives right in. Proposition 1. The world is all that is the case.
Boom. Straight in.
It sounds so simple, almost obvious. But knowing Wittgenstein, it's probably packed with meaning. What exactly is the world for him here? Not just, the planet Earth.
Definitely not just the planet. That first line immediately signals he's not doing geography or astronomy. For Wittgenstein, the world is fundamentally the totality of facts, not of things.
Facts, not things. Okay, unpack that. That's a huge distinction right away.
It changes everything. The world isn't just a big container filled with objects, tables, chairs, trees, people. It's defined by what is the case, what actually obtains, what happens.
So it's not the table itself, but the fact the table is brown or the table is here.
Exactly. It's about the relationships, the actualities. The world is made of these facts.
And where do these facts come from?
They arise from states of affairs. A state of affairs is a combination of objects, things. Think of it as a potential arrangement. The book is on the table. That's a state of affairs. It's a possible configuration.
Possible. So not necessarily actual.
Right. The totality of existing states of affairs, the ones that are actually the case, that's what constitutes the world.
Okay.
And interestingly, he says this totality of existing states of affairs also determines which ones don't exist.
So reality includes both what is and what isn't the case.
Precisely. If the book is on the table, then the state of affairs, the book is under the table, does not exist. So reality is the existence and non-existence of starts of affairs.
Positive and negative facts.
Exactly. The world is this complex tapestry of possibilities, some realized, some not. It's not just a pile of stuff.
Okay, so world facts, existing states of affairs, combinations of objects, which brings us down to the bedrock, these simple objects. What are they? Are they like atoms, indivisible bits?
That's a really good question. In a logical sense, yes, they are the atoms of his system. They are the absolute foundation, the substance of the world.
Substance, meaning they don't change.
Right. They are simple because they can't be broken down further. They're not composite. And they are subsistent, meaning they persist. If the world didn't have this unchangeable substance, these fixed points,
Then what?
then whether a proposition even made sense would depend on whether another proposition was true. You'd get an infinite regress. You couldn't even sketch a picture of the world, true or false.
So the objects guarantee stability, meaningfulness.
Exactly. They fit together in states of affairs like the links of a chain, forming this stable structure. They are the fixed points that allow reality to have an unalterable form, the canvas for facts. They ensure language can have a definite sense.
Okay, so these objects, they have possibilities built into them. He says something about logic not being accidental.
Yes, that's a deep and critical point.
Yeah.
The non-accidental nature of logic. He insists in logic, nothing is accidental.
Yes.
Meaning, if an object can occur in a certain state of affairs, the possibility of that state of affairs must be written into the thing itself.
Written to it, like pre-programmed.
In a logical sense, yes, it's radical. If you truly know an object, you know all its possible combinations, all the states of affairs it could possibly enter into.
You can't discover a new possibility for it later.
No. Because its form, which is the possibility of it occurring in states of affairs, is part of its very nature. Its logical potential is essential to it.
Can you give an analogy?
Sure. Think of a spatial object, like a point in space. It must exist in space. That's part of what it is. Or a spot in your visual field, it must have some color, right? Even if you don't know which one.
Okay.
In the same way, objects contain within themselves the possibility of all situations they can be part of. Their ability to combine isn't some external add-on, it's intrinsic, it's their logical DNA.
But wait, you said a spot must have some color? But then he says objects are colorless. That sounds like a flat-out contradiction.
Yes. That's a very sharp observation, and it points to a really subtle, crucial distinction. When he says objects are colorless, 2.0232, he's making a very specific point about material properties.
He doesn't mean they're literally invisible or something.
No, not like ghosts. He means that properties like being red or being heavy or being at this location aren't features of the simple object itself in isolation.
So where do those properties come from?
They are represented by propositions. They emerge from the specific configuration of objects within an existing state of affairs. The fact that this object is configured in this way with others to be read is expressed in a proposition.
So the property isn't in the object, but in the fact involving the object.
Exactly. So things like space, time, and color, having some color, are actually forms of objects. They're the fundamental dimensions or ways objects can combine and relate, not properties an object carries around intrinsically.
It's the difference between potential and actuality again.
Precisely. The raw potentiality of the object versus the specific actualized fact described by a proposition.
So it sounds like he's not doing physics here. He's not trying to find the ultimate physical particles.
Absolutely not. It's critical to grasp that Wittgenstein is not offering a scientific description of our specific world. He's not doing empirical work.
He's doing logic, philosophy of language.
He's proposing a new philosophical language. He's taking common words, world, fact, object, thought, and giving them incredibly precise, new meanings to reveal the underlying logical structure required for any possible world we could conceive of.
So these definitions are like linguistic rules he's setting up.
In a sense, yes. Very precise terminological conventions. You can accept them or reject them, but if you accept them, he argues, you have to accept the logical consequences that follow. He's mapping the logical scaffolding, the necessary structure that underpins any descriptive language.
He's showing what any logical world must look like.
Because, he'd argue, we couldn't even meaningfully say what an illogical world would look like. It would be nonsense. The big insight is that the world isn't just out there passively waiting. It's fundamentally shaped by the logic of our thought and language.
Okay, so we have this world built of facts, which are configurations of simple objects with inherent logical possibilities. A very precise, maybe even austere picture of reality.
Yeah, something logical, yeah.
So the next big question is, how do we connect with that? How does our messy human language manage to represent this clean, logical structure?
Ah, that's where his famous picture theory comes in. It's the bridge.
We picture facts to ourselves.
2.1.
Exactly. And a logical picture of facts is a thought.
3. So thinking is picturing.
In a logical sense, yes. The picture theory is absolutely central to the whole Tractatus. It explains how language and thought can latch onto reality. The core idea is that a picture is a model of reality, 2.12.
Not necessarily a visual image, though.
No, think broader, think structural analogy. The elements within the picture, maybe words in a sentence, maybe lines on a map, maybe notes in a score, correspond directly to the objects in reality.
2.13.
Okay, element corresponds to object.
But what makes it a picture isn't just the pile of elements, it's how they're arranged. They have to be related to one another in a determinate way, 2.14. That specific connection, that arrangement, is the picture's structure.
Right, like arranging toy cars and houses to show something.
Exactly. And the possibility of that structure is its pictorial form. The crucial step is this. The fact that the picture's elements are related in a specific way represents that the things out there in reality are related in the same way, 2.15.
So the picture is itself a fact.
Yes. A picture is a fact that models another fact. The core idea is that representation works because of a shared structure or form, not just, looking similar.
Fair and structure.
Yeah.
But are there different kinds of sharing? Like a painting shares color, a map shares spatial layout.
Yeah.
But is there something deeper they all share?
Excellent question. And yes, that leads straight to his critical distinction between pictorial form and logical form.
Okay, what's the difference?
A picture has to share something with what it depicts. The pictorial form is what it needs to share in order to be able to depict it after its manner, rightly or falsely. 2.14. So, a spatial picture, like a map, shares spatial form with reality, letting it depict spatial facts. A colored picture shares color form, 2.171.
That's the specific medium or style.
Right, but then there's the logical form. This is what every picture, regardless of its specific medium or style, must have in common with reality just to be able to depict it at all, true or false.
Viewpoint 8.
The universal requirement.
Yes. This shared logical form is the form of reality. Only pictures that share this fundamental logical structure. Logical pictures can truly depict the world. 2.19. It's the underlying syntax, the abstract possibility of structural correspondence that makes any representation possible.
So this logical form, this universal pattern, can we actually talk about it? Can we make a proposition about logical form itself?
The million-dollar question. And this leads to one of his most famous and maybe most challenging ideas. The unspeakable nature of form.
He argued that a picture cannot depict its own pictorial form. It can only display it. 2.172. You can't, draw a picture of pictorialness.
Okay.
And similarly, and this is huge, propositions cannot represent logical form. It is mirrored in them. 4.121. And then the big one. What can be shown cannot be said. 4.1212.
Wow. So there's a fundamental limit to language.
A profound limit. We can't use language to step outside itself and describe its own logical structure. That structure just shows itself in how language works. It's manifested by the propositions, not stated in them.
Can you give an example?
Well, the fact that the name A appears in the proposition fa shows you that the object A is involved in that fact. You don't need a separate sentence saying A is in fa.
Yeah.
The structure itself shows it. The deepest truths about logic and reality for him aren't things we can state. They're revealed in how our language functions.
Okay, so how does this connect specifically to propositions and thought?
Well, a thought is a proposition with a sense. 4. And a proposition is a picture of reality. 4.01.
So a thought is a logical picture.
Exactly. And the proposition is its perceptible expression in words or symbols. He gives that great analogy. A gramophone record, the musical idea, the written notes, the sound waves. 4.014.
They're all different pictures.
All constructed according to the same common logical pattern. They share that internal relation of depicting that holds between language and the world. Different expressions, same underlying logical form.
And this view of language as a logical picture, despite maybe the messiness of everyday language, That leads him to rethink what philosophy is actually doing, right?
Absolutely. He argues that everyday language often disguises thought. 4.002, its surface grammar, its outward form, isn't designed to clearly reveal the underlying logical structure. It's built for other purposes.
Like clothes hiding the body structure.
Good analogy. And that's why philosophy is not one of the natural sciences, 4.11. It's not about discovering new empirical facts.
It's an activity.
Yes, an activity aimed at the logical clarification of thoughts, 4.112. It's not about building theories or doctrines to believe in. Its job is to make propositions clear and set limits to what can be thought, essentially by setting limits to what can be said meaningfully, 4.114.
So philosophy is about dissolving confusion by understanding language better.
Exactly. It's not about finding answers to mysterious questions out there, but about realizing that many of those mysteries arise from misusing language in the first place.
And this includes getting clear about certain kinds of words. You mentioned formal concepts and pseudo-concepts.
Right. This is crucial. Words like object, thing, fact, number, relation. These aren't ordinary concepts like table or red. They don't refer to specific kinds of entities in the world.
They're
They're
different.
formal concepts. 4.1272. In a proper logical notation, they'd be represented by variables placeholders, not by functions or classes, which is how he thought Frege and Russell mistakenly treated them.
What happens if you treat them like normal words?
You end up creating nonsensical pseudo-propositions, like trying to say there are objects in the same way you say there are books.
Why is that nonsensical?
Because the existence of objects, for Wittgenstein, isn't a fact you state. It's shown by the fact that our language has names that refer. It's presupposed by meaningful language itself. Trying to state it as a fact is like trying to state the rules of chess as if they were moves within the game.
Yeah, so he's saying a lot of traditional philosophy is based on these kinds of category mistakes, using language improperly.
That's a huge part of his critique. He explicitly says Frege and Russell believed these formal concepts were functions or classes, and that this led them into philosophical tangles. He thinks many long-standing debates, especially about existence, truth, numbers, are built on these linguistic misunderstandings. He's trying to untie the knots language gets us into, hashtag IV, logic, truth, and the general propositional form.
Okay, we've got the picture theory connecting language to the world, and philosophy's job redefined as clarifying language. Now let's zoom in on the propositions themselves. He says, a proposition is a truth function of elementary propositions.
5.
Right. This is where we get into the real nuts and bolts, the logical engine room of the Tractatus.
So everything builds up from these elementary propositions. What exactly are they?
They are the absolute simplest kind of proposition. They assert the existence of a state of affairs. 4.21. Think of them as the atomic statements, the most basic yes or no claims about the world, like this spot is red.
You're made of.
They consist solely of names, 4.22, and names are the simple symbols, 3.202, that directly stand for the objects, 3.203. They're the primitive hooks onto reality.
So this might be a name for an object, a spot, and is red somehow involves another name or configuration. Roughly, yes. An elementary proposition combines names in a way that depicts a possible combination of objects, a state of affairs. If that state of affairs exists, the proposition is true. If not, it's false. The core idea is that all meaningful language ultimately rests on these direct basic connections between names and objects.
And all other propositions, no matter how complex they seem, like scientific laws or philosophical arguments, are built from these.
That's the claim. Any complex proposition is a truth function of these elementary ones.
Truth function, meaning its truth or falsity depends only on the truth or falsity of the elementary ones it contains.
Exactly. Solely and completely. There's no extra meaning, no hidden context, no interpretation needed once you know the truth values of the basic components. It's purely computational in a sense.
How does that work? He talks about truth possibilities.
Right. The sense of a proposition is its agreement and disagreement with possibilities of existence and non-existence of states of affairs. 4.2. These are its truth possibilities. 4.3.
Like for P and Q, the possibilities are TT, TF, FT, FF.
Precisely. He uses those truth tables, showing all the combinations of true and false for the underlying elementary propositions. A complex proposition agrees with some of these combinations and disagrees with others. The possibilities it agrees with the ones that make it true are its truth grounds.
Okay. But what about propositions that seem true or false no matter what? Like, it's raining or it's not raining.
Ah, yes, those are the crucial limit cases. Tautologies and contradictions. 4.46.
The extreme ends of the spectrum.
Exactly. A tautology, like your example, P or not P, is true for all the truth possibilities. It agrees with every possible combination. It doesn't matter what P actually is.
And a contradiction, like P and not P.
That's false for all possibilities. It agrees with none of them. It can never be true.
So they're guaranteed true or guaranteed false. That sounds important.
They are important, but in a very specific way. Here's the kicker. Tautologies and contradictions say nothing.
Oh.
4.461. They lack sense.
Say nothing. How can P or not P say nothing? It seems true.
It's true, but it doesn't picture reality. It doesn't represent any particular state of affairs. 4.462, think about it. Saying it's raining or it's not raining tells you absolutely nothing about the actual weather. It's true regardless.
So it conveys no information about the world.
Exactly. It leaves all possibilities open. A contradiction, conversely, closes off all possibilities. Neither gives you factual information. But, and this is important, they are not nonsensical. They're part of the logical symbolism.
Like zero in arithmetic. 4.461.
Good pull. Yes,
Thank
like
you.
zero. They don't describe the world, but they show the logical properties of language and the world. 6.12, they reveal the scaffolding, the rules of the game. Logical truth isn't about the world. It structures how we talk about it.
That's a really subtle but huge point. All bachelors are unmarried tells me about words, not about actual bachelors out there.
Precisely. It clarifies the concept, reveals a linguistic rule, but carries no new empirical information. It's a truth of language, not about the world.
Okay, so if all meaningful propositions are truth functions of elementary ones, is there one single pattern they all follow, a kind of universal recipe?
That's exactly what Wittgenstein was after. He sought the general propositional form, the essence shared by all possible propositions. 4.5. This form is the essence of a proposition, 5.471, and therefore also the essence of the world, 5.4711.
And he gives a formula for it. That looks pretty intimidating. P, N6?
It looks technical, but the idea behind it is actually quite elegant, if radical. Let's break it down. P stands for all the basic atomic propositions. N stands for any set or collection of propositions you might already have. And N stands for the operation of negating all the propositions in that set.
So you start with atoms, you can group them, and you can negate groups.
Essentially, yes. This single formula describes a process, how you can generate any possible proposition, no matter how complex, starting from elementary ones, just by repeatedly applying this one fundamental operation joint negation, neither nor or applying nor to conjunctions.
This one operation, not and or if that.
No, he showed how all those other logical connectives could be defined using just this one operation. It's related to what's sometimes called the Sheffer stroke. It reveals a process, an operation, not a static list of connectors. The incredible idea is that all the richness of language comes from combining simple statements using just this single logical tool.
Wow. That definitely sounds different from how people like Frege and Russell thought about logic, with their focus on constants like and or.
Oh, completely different. And it leads him directly to conclude that there are no logical objects or logical constants in the way Frege and Russell conceived them.
5.4.
So not and or aren't names for special logical things.
No, they're not objects that propositions are about. The very fact that you can define them in terms of each other, like defining A and B as not A or not B, shows they aren't primitive fundamental entities or relations.
5.42.
Their seeming existence is just an illusion of grammar.
Exactly. It aligns with Occam's maxim. Don't multiply entities unnecessarily. 5.47321. Unnecessary signs mean nothing. Logic, he says, must look after itself. 5.473. It doesn't need these special objects propping it up. The connectives are part of the structure, showing how propositions relate, not referring to things.
So where does mathematics fit into this purely logical picture? Is 2 + 2 = 4 a description of the world?
Not for Wittgenstein. Mathematics is a logical method. 6.2. Its propositions, equations like 2 + 2 = 4, are therefore pseudo-propositions. 6.2.
Pseudo-propositions, like tautologies, they don't express thoughts about reality. 6.21.
They don't depict facts. Instead, mathematics shows the logic of the world through its equations, just like logic shows it through tautologies.
Yep.
6.22. An equation expresses the substitutability of two expressions.
So 2 + 2 = 4 just shows that 2 + 2 and 4 can be swapped in logical operations. It defines their logical form.
Precisely. 6.23. Mathematical statements aren't the end goal in themselves. We use them as tools for making inferences between non-mathematical propositions. 6.211. They're part of the logical machinery, the rules of calculation, not descriptions of how things are.
And again, this puts him at odds with Frege and Russell.
Yeah, definitely. He criticizes Frege's theory of meaning for confusing the role of function names and arguments. 5.02. He thinks Russell's definition of identity, AB means they share all properties, is flawed, 5.5302, and rejects the need for an identity sign altogether, 5.53. Identity of object should be shown by using the same sign, difference by using different signs.
That gets rid of problems like ACAC.
He thinks so. And also things like Russell's axiom of infinity, which tries to state as a logical truth that there are infinitely many things. Wittgenstein sees that as an empirical claim trying to disguise itself as logic. 5.535. He also believes his view of functions, where a function sign can't take itself as an argument, dissolves Russell's paradox automatically. 3.333. The core point is, by analyzing the logical form, he believes he can show that mathematics isn't about special mathematical objects, but about the internal structure and rules of our logical system.
Okay, so we've traced this incredibly rigorous system. The world is facts, language is pictures, logic is truth functions, philosophy is clarification. It seems like he's built these really high, precise walls around meaningful language.
He absolutely has. Defined the boundaries very sharply.
And then, having done all that, he makes his most famous, most dramatic move. He turns to what lies outside those walls, culminating in that final proposition, number 7. What we cannot speak about, we must pass over in silence.
The mic drop moment of 20th century philosophy.
Right. This is where it all leads. The philosophical rubber hits the road. What does he mean by this silence? What can't we speak about?
Well, that final statement is, as he essentially said, the whole sense of the book. It's the logical endpoint. He's shown, he believes, the limits of language, which mean the limits of my world.
5.6.
My world. That sounds personal.
It connects to that. Logic structures the world, so the limits of logic are the limits of the world. 5.61. We can't step outside logic to say, okay, the world includes this but not that, because that would require an impossible viewpoint. You can't think illogically. We cannot think what we cannot think. So what you cannot think, we cannot say either. 5.61.
So any attempt to talk about things beyond logical facts, beyond what can be pictured,
necessarily results in nonsense. It's trying to use language for a job it wasn't built for, treating things that are shown, like logical form or maybe ethical value, as if they were things that could be said, like facts. The deep insight is that our ability to think and speak isn't just a tool for exploring reality. It defines the boundaries of what we can even conceive as reality. You said, my world. How does this tie into solipsism, that very strange idea that maybe only my own mind is real? That seems like a huge leap from pure logic.
It does, but he connects them directly. That very line, the limits of my language mean the limits of my world, provides the key, he says, to understanding how much truth there is in solipsism. 5.62.
So there's truth in solipsism.
He says, what the solipsist means is quite correct, only it cannot be said but makes itself manifest. 5.62. The feeling that the world is my world is shown, not stated, precisely because the limits of the only language I understand are the limits of my world.
It's a consequence of the limits of language.
Yes, he even says, I am my world, the microcosm, 5.63. But crucially, the I, the thinking subject, isn't an object within that world. There is no such thing as the subject that thinks or entertains ideas that belongs to the world. 5.631.
So where is the subject?
The subject does not belong to the world. Rather, it is a limit of the world. 5.632.
A limit, like the edge.
Exactly. He uses that famous analogy of the eye and the visual field. 5.633. You don't see your own eye within your field of vision, and nothing in the visual field allows you to deduce it's being seen by an eye.
Right. The eye is the point of view, not something viewed.
Precisely. And apparently, Wittgenstein was very insistent on correcting drawings that mistakenly put the eye inside the visual field in editions of the book. He wanted it clearly outside, illustrating that the I, the philosophical self, is a boundary condition, not part of the world's content.
So if you follow this logic, solipsism isn't about being trapped in my own head.
No. When you push it rigorously, solipsism coincides with pure realism. 5.64. The self of solipsism shrinks to a point without extension, and there remains the reality coordinated with it. The philosophical self is the metaphysical subject, the limit, not a part of it. 5.641. The insight is that the I isn't a special personal thing, but a universal logical boundary, and the world structured by logic is just there.
Oh.
Objectively.
Okay. Mind slightly blown. So the self is a limit, and the world is facts. What about things like good and evil? Ethics and value, where do they fit? Or don't they?
They don't fit within the world of facts. That's the radical conclusion. It is impossible for there to be propositions of ethics. 6.42, you can't state ethical truths as if they were facts. Propositions can express nothing that is higher. Because ethics is transcendental. 6.421, it cannot be put into words. The sense of the world, any ultimate value or purpose, must lie outside the world. 6.41.
Outside.
Yes, because in the world, everything is as it is and everything happens as it does happen. In it, no value exists.
Right.
If value were just another fact, it would be contingent, accidental. Real value, he implies, has to be necessary, absolute, which means it can't be part of the contingent world of facts. It must lie outside the whole sphere of what happens and is the case.
So our actions, our will, they don't create value in the world.
Not by changing the facts. The exercise of will, good or bad, can only alter the limits of the world. 6.43. It changes your perspective, the scope of your world. That's why the world of the happy man is a different one from that of the unhappy man. Ethics isn't about stating facts. It's about a stance, a way of relating to the world, a condition of the world maybe, something shown, not said.
Shown, not said. That keeps coming back. Which leads us to the mystical. Is he actually endorsing mysticism here?
He's acknowledging something he calls mystical, but defining it very carefully within his logical framework. It's not how things are in the world that is mystical, but that it exists. 6.44.
The sheer fact of existence itself.
Yes. The wonder isn't in the details, the facts, but in the inexplicable thatness of the world. And feeling the world as a limited whole, it is this that is mystical. 6.45.
Seeing the world from the outside, almost.
Kind of. An appreciation of the world as a whole, viewed under the aspect of eternity, subspecies eterni, perhaps. It's this feeling, this perspective on the world as a bounded totality that he labels mystical. But again, it's something felt, shown, not something that can be described in factual propositions.
So given all these limits, what can be said, what must be shown, what is mystical and unspeakable, what does he think philosophy should actually do? What's its correct method?
His proposed method is radical, almost deflationary. Philosophy's correct method would be simply to say nothing except what can be said, i.e. propositions of natural science. 6.53. Stick to the facts.
And if someone tries to talk metaphysics, ethics, the mystical,
then the philosophical job is simply to demonstrate to him that he had failed to give a meaning to certain signs in his sentences. Point out where they've crossed the boundary into nonsense by misusing language.
That doesn't sound very satisfying. He admits the person wouldn't feel like they were being taught philosophy.
No, it wouldn't feel like it. But Wittgenstein insists it would be the only strictly correct one. Philosophy's role is therapeutic, clarifying. It dissolves problems caused by linguistic confusion. It doesn't build grand systems.
Which brings us back to the very beginning and that ladder analogy.
6.54.
Exactly, the ultimate paradox. His own propositions, the whole intricate structure of the Tractatus itself, are like a ladder.
You use it to climb up.
To get to a point where you understand the limits of language, where you see clearly what can and cannot be said, and once you've reached that understanding...
You've had to throw away the ladder. Yes. Anyone who understands me eventually recognizes them, his propositions, as nonsensical. Once they've served their purpose of clarification, you see that they too were, in a way, attempts to say things about logical structure that can only be shown. The book's goal is to lead you to silence by showing you the boundaries. It's self-consuming. Hashtag tag outro. So if we try to, tie this all together, that a Tractatus isn't really a system of philosophical beliefs you're supposed to adopt. It's more like a method, a very demanding, rigorous method for understanding the logical structure that underlies language and reality.
He genuinely thought he'd found the final solution to philosophy's problems, didn't he?
He did. Not by answering the big metaphysical questions, but by showing that many of them are actually senseless. They arise because we misuse language. We try to talk about things that lie beyond the limits of what can be meaningfully said.
So he wasn't trying to kill philosophy, but maybe purify it. Show its a proper place.
Exactly. Its proper domain is logical clarification, giving us the tools to avoid getting tangled up in our own words.
Still, it's a challenging idea. Even Bertrand Russell, his mentor in many ways, admitted he felt this certain sense of intellectual discomfort with the whole idea that so much could only be shown, not said.
Yeah, Russell wondered if maybe there was a way out, like a hierarchy of languages, a meta-language to talk about the object language.
But Wittgenstein would probably say the same limits apply to the meta-language too, right? You just push the problem up a level.
That seems likely, yeah. The fundamental limits would remain. It leads back to that comment Wittgenstein reportedly made, that his work had two parts.
The written part the Tractatus.
And all that I have not written. And it is precisely the second part that is the important one.
The silence.
The silence. The written part draws the boundaries from the inside very precisely. And by doing that, by being silent about what's outside, he sets everything, the speakable and the unspeakable, firmly in its place. It's almost an invitation, isn't it, to recognize the significance of what lies beyond words.
So if what can be said clearly is said clearly, and what we cannot talk about, we pass over in silence, what is the real nature of that silence? What does it contain? And thinking about these limits, what can you, our listener, now maybe see more clearly? What does that silence reveal about the things we value most, the things that perhaps can't be put into simple facts?